Audiobook Academy Biography presents Vannevar Bush. American electrical engineer and administrator Vannevar Bush, born March 11, 1890 in Everett, Massachusetts, died June 28, 1974 in Belmont, Massachusetts, who developed the differential analyzer and directed government mobilization of scientific research during World War II. Education. He graduated from Tufts College, Medford, Massachusetts, in 1913 with a bachelor's degree in mathematics and a master's degree in mathematics, both in 1913. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, then based in Boston, and Harvard University, then in nearby Cambridge, both gave him a doctorate in electrical engineering in 1916 after he had worked as a teacher and in electronics. In the fall of 1916, Bush returned to Tufts as an instructor and quickly became active in anti-submarine research. During World Conflict I, he developed a system for detecting submarines, but it was never used by the U.S. Navy due to Bush's lack of access to government policymakers, something he would overcome in the next war. Inventor. Bush enrolled at MIT's Department of Electrical Engineering in 1919. Analog computers were his specialty in the interwar years, when he and his team were leading the way. Voltage, for example, can be used to represent data in analog computers since it can change over time. Contrast this with a binary computer, which only has two voltage levels, 0 and 1, to represent the binary integers 0 and 1. In addition to solving long-distance power line issues, Bush's analog computers have been used to handle a variety of other engineering challenges. By 1931, the differential analyzer, his most successful machine, was up and running. The differential analyzer was able to provide workable, albeit approximate, answers to problems that had previously proved prohibitively difficult using a sophisticated gear and cam arrangement driven by steel shafts. Many different engineering and physics problems could soon be solved with the differential analyzer, which was a huge success. Built in 1935 and dubbed Rodney's Rockefeller differential analyzer, this machine proved to be the most powerful computer accessible until digital computers were introduced in 1945. During World War II, it was used to make ballistic stables for the military. To this end, Bush, like many other electrical engineers of his generation, worked to refocus the field's attention away from the production and distribution of electric power and toward the design of electronic equipment for an industrial and electricity-based civilization. One of the founders of the Raytheon Company, an electronic parts manufacturer, in 1922. His 49 electronic patents were issued over the course of his life. Military-industrial complex. As a result of the appointment of Carl T. Compton as the new MIT president in 1932, Bush was named Dean of Engineering. He utilized it as a bully pulpit to influence the public perception of engineers. Engineers, or technocrats, were widely held to be culpable for the Great Depression. Bush and Compton both sought to dispel this widely held belief. While serving as head of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's short-lived Science Advisory Board, Bush gained experience in national politics. When he left MIT in 1939, Bush became president of the Carnegie Institution, the oldest private research institution in the United States. President Bush met Franklin Roosevelt soon after the German invasion of Poland in September 1939, proposing the creation of a committee to coordinate military research and advise the armed forces about emerging technologies, the National Defense Research Committee, NDRC. On June 27, 1940, Bush was elected head of the newly constituted National Defense Research Committee, NDRC. Bush was named chairman of the newly formed Office of Scientific Research and Development, OSRD, a year later. James Bryant Conant has taken over as chairman of the NDRC, a position he previously held. An additional role of OSRD was to serve as a point of contact between the Allies and the National Defense Research Committee, NDRC. Annual expenditures totaled $500 million by the end of the war. Prior to World War II, Bush had began arranging the research of American scientists and engineers for the conflict in Europe. Through his extensive network of academic, industrial, and governmental contacts, Bush played a key role in bridging the gap between public funding for scientific research and that of the private sector. Big science experiments like the Manhattan Project were possible when the expenditures of contemporary, large-scale, scientific research were transferred from industry to the government. As a result, the Pentagon system, or military-industrial complex, was coined to describe this method of supporting and coordinating scientific research. Bush's management and political skills were on display in the development of the OSRD's radar and atomic bombs. Bush established the Microwave Committee and the Radiation Laboratory at MIT to guide the development of microwave-based radar systems, a substantial improvement over the long-wave radar systems developed by the U.S. Navy in the 1930s. These organizations, in turn, drew on his MIT contacts. Former students and colleagues of Bush carried with them not just their knowledge but also networks of academics at universities such as Stanford and firms such as the Sperry Gyroscope Company, who were working to develop microwave technology at the time. The fact that MIT was the greatest single beneficiary of OSRD contracts was in large part due to Bush's pre-war contacts, which played a key role in the wartime management of research. Using the atomic weapon revealed yet another facet of President Bush's leadership abilities. Both the NDRC and the OSRD took on the responsibilities of the Uranium Committee, which Roosevelt had set up in 1939. After Bush was dissatisfied with the committee's progress, he added new members and quickly convened another committee, armed with different information, to receive the report he desired, one that stated that a bomb was possible and that Germany was most likely ahead of the United States in its development. It all happened before the United States was invaded by Japan, and he set into action the activities that would lead to Hiroshima and Nagasaki being destroyed in 1945. Disillusionment. The military has become the most powerful ally of scientific research and development thanks to the success of scientists and engineers in addressing issues and inventing new weapons for the military. After the war, Bush realized that science would play a new role in shaping the nation's post-war political culture. When President Franklin D. Roosevelt asked for a report on how science could serve the country in the post-war era in November 1944, he arranged for it to be written. Science, the Endless Frontier was Bush's design for coordinating government support of university-based research, written for Roosevelt but given to President Harry S. Truman in July 1945. The National Research Foundation, NRF, was a crucial part of Bush's agenda and would fund research in the physical and biological sciences, as well as national defense, through an independent chairman. Lastly, Bush feared that the military's new passion for R&D would permanently alter the character of American scientific activity and ultimately prove damaging to economic growth. Bush was not alone in this anxiety. Bush's National Research Council, NRC, chairman would be shielded from political pressure, whether from the White House or Congress, to support research that may be politically expedient but scientifically unsound. This idea of independence turned out to be a sham. It was not Truman's opinion nor that of his budget secretary that an entity whose director could not be hired or fired should be approved. In the wake of his proposal's failure, Bush's influence on scientific policy was effectively extinguished. The fear of military domination of scientific research prompted Bush to publish Modern Arms and Free Men in 1949 as a treatise that combined political practice with political theory. It was Bush's warning that the militarization of American science would impair economic development that was widely debated and examined in the book. Bush's conviction that ballistic missiles were impractical stemmed from moral as well as technical considerations. Though Bush knew a precise ballistic missile guidance system will be built at some point, he worried how much it would cost the government and how long it would take to get there. Finally, he concluded his book by pleading with legislators to re-establish authority over the military for the benefit of American science and democracy. Legacy. In a career that spanned from the era of electric power to computers and electronic gadgets, Bush played a pivotal role in the evolution of American scientific research. At MIT in 1919, the nation's electric power network was a top priority, and private foundations were the primary funding sources for American scientific research. Consumer electronics and computers had become commonplace by the time of his death in 1974, and the United States government, particularly the military forces, had risen to the position of principal supporter of American scientific research. Today, Bush is remembered as a computer science prophet as well. In a 1945 Atlantic Monthly article titled As We May Think, Bush described a gadget he named the Memex, an indexed, archived, microfilm machine for cross-referencing and retrieving data. His research in analog computers and microfilm technology was carried over into this essay. It heralds the advent of hypertext and the World Wide Web for today's readers. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button for more content like this. See you in next video.